Blast from Our Past Network.
Hello and welcome back to Why This Film, the podcast where we reach back into your childhood, pluck out a movie, rewatch it and have a chat about it. I'm Emily Slade and welcome back.
You watched it so many times before and now you're gonna watch it again. But it's been so many years since you last saw it and now you show it to your friends and they're like, What
am I watching?
Why this film?
And I'm joined today by Dermot. Hello.
Hello. Hello, Emily. Hello, everybody.
Thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. And your chosen movie is Jaws, 1975. The IMDb breakdown. When a killer shark unleashes chaos on a beach community, it's up to a local sheriff, a marine biologist, and an old seafarer to hunt the beast down. Obviously based on the book by Peter Benchley, and I think he wrote the screenplay as well. Why this film?
Why this film? Because it's just one of the greatest films ever made. And I saw it when I was 11 years old. I know, years ago, in the last, about 200 years ago.
How did you, nightmares? Did you have nightmares?
Did I have nightmares? Not as many as I thought I would, to be honest. But it was an A. When it came out, it was an A. In those days, it was there was U, A, double A, and X. Instead of U, PG, PG-12, 15 and 18. And Jaws, just they managed to release it as an A. I thought it would have been an AA, but...
Yeah, because at the end of the movie it came up with the PG rating, certificate, and I literally, flipped the table. I was like, what? Yeah. How is this movie a PG?
Well, that the rating that comes up at the end of the film, of course, is the old American one, which was the PG rating. So children of any age could go in as long as they were accompanied by an adult. And that's how it worked in the States, whereas here it was different. I think A you were allowed to go in as kids because I know lots of films that I used to go and see with my friends or on my own were A certificates. So we used to go in. Close Encounters, I think, was an A. Another film that I watched again and again and again at the cinema. It was an A. I went with my father. We were meant to go with my older brother, but he snuck off and went to see it during the week without us. And my dad was really annoyed. Anyway, we went along to see it. It had been on at Preston for a long while because in those days it came out in 75 in the States, came out in 76 over here. Well, by the time it got to Preston, it was 1976. And it played for God knows how many weeks because we only had, I think, in those days, I think we only had 3 cinemas in Preston. The ABC, the Odeon 1 and 2, and the Ritz. And the Ritz shut down, I think, before Jaws. So there was possibly only 2 big cinemas. So you can imagine a whole area like Preston with just 2 cinemas. They used to sell out all the time.
Yeah.
And they'd be on for week after week after week. And so for Jaws, my dad took me along on a Saturday morning. I think it was. We got to see it. It was one of the early shows. The place was packed, and I was glued to it from start to finish. I'd only seen certain adverts on TV, and to be honest, I didn't really know what all of it was about.
Yeah.
Until, of course, my brother came home from seeing it and told us the entire film.
Oh my God's sake!
Even though my dad said, "Don't spoil it for us." And then my brother, and then right at the end. And he just blurted it out. So yeah, we went along to see it, and I remember it because specifically I was sat on one side of my dad, and there was 2 little kids sat next to me dad on his left hand side with another family, and it got to the bit where the head pops out of the boat, and my dad jumped. My dad wasn't an easy man to scare in the slightest, and he leapt out of his seat. But one of the main reasons was the little kid who was next to him turned round and sank his teeth in my dad's arm, and so grabbed onto him. So my dad was Jesus, leapt out of his seat.
That's a valid reaction, to be fair.
Yeah, well, yeah, and I'd never seen my dad so frightened in all my life. And the other thing was, briefly though, as I say, I can talk for hours. My dad was in the Merchant Navy, and for years, you know, he just swam happily in the sea. Wherever we went, where there was the sea, he would swim as far out as he could. And of course, when it got to the bit about the USS Indianapolis that Robert Shaw's talking about, it hit home with my dad because he was in the Merchant Navy at the end of the Second World War. And one of the jobs that they had to do was to go in and collect any of the Army or Navy, mainly naval officers, not just officers, you know, the Navy from, I'm waffling now, from ships that had either been hit or they were prisoners of war that had been released. And they were collecting all these sailors. And my dad's job basically was to babysit them because some of them were in such a terrible state they used to throw themselves overboard.
Oh my God.
And of course the other thing was they used to turn up in waters and collect them out of the water. Well, of course, as soon as my dad heard the tale of the USS Indianapolis, it absolutely petrified him because he suddenly realised, shit, all those years... Oh, pardon for my language. But he said, oh, that's all right. There'll be a lot from me. He just thought all those years that he'd been jumping in the water...
without a care in the world.
Without a care in the world. And there could have been all these sharks. And literally it stopped him from swimming in the sea for a good couple of years. Yeah, but he I think because of his love of the sea and the Merchant Navy, and the fact that we didn't have, not going into too much detail, me and my dad were a bit poles apart growing up. But it was one thing that we had in common was film. So, of course, when we came out of the cinema, my dad talked and talked and talked. And just to me, which was wonderful. Aww. It was just to me, which was wonderful, you know, in the car. And when we got home, there was me and my mum and dad were having tea. My brother was off out, I think he was working. My sisters, I think, were at teacher training college by then, so there was just the three of us at home for that evening. And my mum had made, stupidly, I don't know why I remember this, but my mum had made potato croquettes, and I'd never had potato croquettes before. So they always remind me of Jaws.
Yeah.
And I always remember just sitting down eating these potato croquettes, being absolutely knackered from watching this film, and my dad just talking about it and talking about it and talking about the Navy and talking about his experiences and everything. And it just, the whole film, it was just a perfect day with me and my dad, which didn't always happen. I would have to say, it didn't always happen. But that day was terrific. And I also remember that we got home, it was tea time, I had my potato croquettes, I was 11 years old, I went to bed. I was so exhausted from watching the film, I just went to bed to sleep because I was knackered. I had an early night, which I never do. But yeah, what was the question again? Sorry, I waffle.
That's amazing. No, that's so
I did
cool.
say
It's
I
like
waffle.
a Proust moment. Like you watch Jaws and you can taste potato croquettes. Like that's really lovely. Yeah. That's so cool.
I always think as soon as I see a potato croquette,
you think of a predatorial
well, this is it.
great white shark.
Well, yeah,
so
that's
good.
the thing. That's the thing. But I mean, a lot of my experiences with film, a lot of the films that I've seen, come from the fact that dog's barking. Comes from the fact that, is that me? No, I was just thinking. I was just going to say I don't have a dog. But where was I? Yeah, a lot of the films that I saw as a child, because of course this was the 60s. 70s, there was no video recorder, and I think I may have put in the email that I sent to you about it, that there was no video recorder. So if you wanted to see a film more than once, you had to do what we did, which was go to the cinema, watch the film, and when it had finished, sneak out of the auditorium into the gents' toilet and hide there until the lights went down again. Then you'd come out and watch it. I watched Sweeney 2 3 times in one day. Sweeney 2 3 times in one day because of that. And that was a double A, and I wasn't allowed in the cinema, but I snuck in and did it. And did the same with Close Encounters. Watched Close Encounters about 3 times a day for 2 days. And the same with Spy Who Loved Me. Not every film, of course. And I'm not proud of the fact that, I snuck in and hid, but I was a kid.
Away with it, I would have done. But, they were so strict on us. So strict. Yeah. But my dad came out of Jaws and then immediately went in to see Jaws again.
Yeah. That's what people used to do. That's what people used to do. I did that with Roger Rabbit as well.
Yeah.
I was a huge Bob Hoskins fan. Absolutely. My favourite film was Long Good Friday, and he was just the greatest thing to me.
Yeah.
When I went to see Roger Rabbit, and I saw it 3 times in a day. I
Amazing.
came out, queued up again, because of course, if the film was quiet, you could hide in the toilets. There was no problem. If it was a busy film, no, you couldn't. You had to come out and queue up again. So for Roger Rabbit, I queued 3 times in one day for that.
Amazing.
But for Jaws, I just remember it being, because also it was just briefly. Well, it was a perfect film. It was the perfect film for the cinema, because it was just a great experience of everybody sitting there and screaming at the same time and laughing at the same time, because there is a lot of very good humour. Spielberg made sure that there was good humour in it, and also I know, because I'm a bit of a geek, I know that you mentioned Peter Benchley, whose book it's from, which is a good book as well. I don't know if you've read the book.
So
Have you
I've
read the
tried
book
to
at all?
read the Book of Jaws about 4 times, and I get to the bit in like page 3 where Chrissy Watkins puts her hand down and like feels the like shreds
the
of
nub
flesh of her foot, and I'm like, put it down.
Yeah.
Can't
Oh, you should persevere. I think he uses the word nub. Yeah.
Yeah, it's
Yeah,
horrible.
I
and
loved it.
I was quite, because my sister is obsessed with sharks. She went through a real phase where sharks were her life, and they still are to an extent. The whole of the bathroom door was just full of shark facts. And so, of course, she came to Jaws very young and very quickly, and she read the book. She was reading like Hannibal and Jaws when she was like 11, and it's like, ew, what are you doing? So I tried to read it, and I was like, gross, and put it down. Back to my princess books. And so she read Jaws. She doesn't like the movie because it's not like the book, but also she does like the movie because it's still a movie of Jaws. She's just like, they miss out so much and blah, blah, blah. I'm like, yeah, welcome to adapting books to movies. Like, that's what happens.
True. It's very true.
So she's seen Jaws like 12 times. I had never ever really watched Jaws properly until last night, and I made sure I turned all the lights off and I like focused on it, and I was like, I'm gonna watch Jaws, because I watch a lot of like top 100 scariest things, top 100 scary movies, top 100 scary moments, and without a doubt, number 3 in the top 5, there is always Jaws. And for years, having not watched this movie and only ever seeing the bit where he's throwing the charm and the shark comes up and look, the head comes down into the ship, and Spielberg made a point of putting it in there. And I was like, why the fuck is this fish movie in the top horrors between The Exorcist and The Shining, which also isn't scary? Like, I was a twat. I was like, I don't get it. I don't get Jaws. Like, what's so great about Jaws? It looks really boring. Because also, I have watched every Ghost Shark, Two-Headed Shark Attack, Shark in Venice, all of those shitty shark movies. I'm like a connoisseur. So I'm like, I don't want a shark movie where it's about like themes and metaphors and people talking. Ugh, just give me a shark coming out of a coffee cup and eating someone. So I was very much like, this isn't the kind of shark movie for me. And then I sat down and I watched it last night, and obviously it is an incredible movie. Like, it is so well structured and paced and acted, and it's so funny and it's so scary. I was screaming. I'd seen that head come out of that ship so many times on like clip shows, and yet with the atmosphere that Spielberg builds and the tension and the music and the way it just slowly comes into view, I screamed. Like, I literally screamed out loud, and I was just so happy with how well this movie lived up to its expectations. And I don't mind a plastic shark. I actually think if it's physically there and chomping down on you, that's just as scary as a real life shark kind of thing. But you mentioned how this time round you noticed something that you'd never noticed before.
Yeah.
What was that?
Yeah, it was very briefly, and I'm a nerd. I agree with you, because I just want to say I'm so glad that Spielberg didn't do with Jaws what George Lucas did with Star Wars, and he didn't recut it, and he didn't put in a CGI shark for the 40th anniversary or anything like that. Yeah, it did look a bit tacky when it jumps up on the side, and the mouth is going yeah kind of thing. But it's still effective. It's still effective. And when it swims past the boat, plus with the John Williams music that goes with it. But but one of the reasons why you don't see the shark a lot is because he decided to make it a bit more like Hitchcock. But he was so aware of the fact that it looked a bit shite, he thought the best way was not to show it. And so you build up different things. Yeah.
Genius decision, because when those 3 yellow barrels pop up out of the water, I screamed again.
Yeah.
3 barrels coming out of the water, and I was petrified.
Well, this is it.
Genius.
Yeah, he's an absolute genius. And also when the 2 men that try and catch it off the harbour, and he pulls the port away, and it goes off with the shark, and then it turns around and it all comes back again. Yeah. And you just think, oh my God, that's amazing, because you don't see it at all. You don't know how big the shark is. You don't know what it looks like. You just see the debris.
The bit where the kids are playing in the bay, and they've just been duped by the children in the sea. And then the shark comes in the bay, and it doesn't come out of the water, but you just see it coming towards the man under the water. Yeah. I was like, like, and you hear about Jaws, everyone's always like, oh, it made me scared to have a bath, let alone go into the ocean. And I'm like, fucking idiots. I don't want to see now. Not happening.
No, I wouldn't.
No. See again.
No, don't blame you. Yeah, don't blame you, especially in this warm weather. Yeah. Definitely, I wouldn't. It would put you off. When you mentioned the bit in the bay with the kids, that is the scene where I noticed this glaring mistake, and it's when the first woman turns round and sees the shark fin, which of course is the false one, but she doesn't know it. She sees it. Behind her is the yellow inflatable with the old man and his 2 kids. His 2 grandchildren, and they've just been made to go in the water by the mayor. Yeah. So you've got them. So of course there's this great reaction from the woman about to say shark. She screams. It immediately cuts to another man looking at the shark, going but with the same yellow dinghy and man and 2 kids behind, and the woman disappears completely. And I just thought, hang on a minute, how did that happen? It was just a glaringly really bad cut. And I just thought, that's it. I've got to throw it in the bin now. But no, I didn't. But I just thought, after all these years of watching it, I never noticed. I never, ever noticed. Having said that, and the good thing is, all these years of never noticing stuff, watching it again, I suddenly realised just how lovely Amity is. Because there's a scene when he's at the beginning where he's driving to the beach. Well, I'm just thinking, oh, it's really lovely. Yeah, I'd never noticed it before because I'm so, every time I watched it. But this time I was sat with my notepad taking little notes about things. But this is it. I mean, yes, it's a big wobbly rubber shark, but it's brilliant. And it works effectively.
It is. It does. And like, I liked waiting for the last 5 minutes of the movie to see this shark, and the anticipation made it scarier. And then, as I say, like, I'm scared of everything, so I'll give myself that. But like I always say, if something's physically there, no matter what it is, like whenever people used to go around the London Dungeon, which I used to work at, and you'd be dressed up and you're like, whatever, and you'd come around the corner and you know it's a 21-year-old actor in a shit costume, having done their own makeup. But with the lights and the sounds and the dark, long corridors, and you turn the corner and they're there, it's scary. It doesn't matter that it's stupid. It is still frightening. And if that fucking enormous rubber head of a shark was bashing a cage that I was in, regardless of the fact that it was plastic, I'd still be like, please stop this. This is horrible.
Well, yeah, because I mean, it was a hell of a size to begin with. Even though it was a rubber shark, it was a hell of a size. Also, I mean, because the lovely thing about the cage as well is that it's intercut with the documentary footage that the tailors took. So he was quite good at being able to use that footage. Okay, the size of the shark changed a couple of times. But the fact that they've got the bit where the shark's on top of the cage thrashing around, so effective, it scared the life out of me as a kid.
Good, yeah.
Oh yeah.
I Jaws, I was like, bloody hell, that's a real shark, and that's really terrifying the way it's moving.
Yeah.
Because sharks can look quite sweet, actually. Real life sharks can look quite friendly because they've got this like perpetual smile or whatever.
Well, yeah.
But that was
others
really, really frightening how it was moving.
Oh, yeah.
And my mum at that point was like, I thought every time the shark appeared, they played that music. They barely played that music. What's going on? I don't like what. And I was like, yeah, but Mum, it's like how everyone does for Psycho. That's not what you actually hear. Like, it's not what actually happens. But that she had a point in that I was expecting an almost old, really shit horror trick where it's like, something's gonna happen. You can tell by the music. They don't do that. They're just like, and it's a shark. Anyway, here's the music now. And you're like, fuck!
It's true.
It's the truth. Me.
Yeah, the way he filmed it, I mean, Spielberg did a brilliant job. I mean, he wasn't the first choice. There was a couple of other directors picked beforehand, and one of the directors that they got rid of was because he kept on talking about a giant whale. Every time, just this giant whale. So like, well, he can't even get shark right, so he's not going to direct this. And then Spielberg came in, and with the fact that he decided, I mean, yes, he did take a lot of the book and throw it away to some extent. There's no affair between Hopper and Brady's wife.
My sister's always like, me, they cut out the affair to try and make it a PG rating. I was like, also though, I don't give a shit about Brady's wife. Like, no offence, but it's a perfectly 2-hour movie, and there are 3 characters that you have to get in there and make us care about. They do a really good job. If they'd started dicking about on shore when they should have been on the water, I'd have been like, yo, there's a shark. Why are we caring that Brody's marriage is falling apart? Like, yeah,
precisely. I agree. And as a kid, I would have found that boring as well. Yeah. So they would have lost all the younger people watching. But also the other thing, I mean, Spielberg has said that he took that out because at the end of the day, he didn't want... That would have taken over the conflict on the boat between the 3 men. It would have been like Hopper and Brody fighting each other just over a woman when they should be joining together. Really they should be fighting over the shark.
Anyway.
Yeah, so he took all that out. Peter Benchley did 3 drafts of the film. Hardly any of it was used. It was given to Carl Gottlieb, who was playing the. He's not the mayor's sidekick, but he's one of the townsfolk, and he's got a few lines in it, and he rewrote majority of it. There's also a couple of people that came in to write stuff which had gone uncredited, but Carl Gottlieb, I think that's how you pronounce his name. I always call him Gottlieb because as a kid seeing that name up on the screen, but I think it's Gottlieb. He put in the humour, and he would take the actors out for lunch with Spielberg and get them to improvise. So things like, you're going to need a bigger boat, is actually a Roy Schneider line that he came out with as a joke.
Yeah, that's mental, because that's the line from Jaws.
That's the line that everybody knows, but Peter Benchley gets credited for it now. And also for Quinn's speech about the Indianapolis, I think John Milius was one of the people who co-wrote that speech, and then it was given to Robert Shaw, who rewrote it himself because he was a playwright.
Oh,
and you've got this
cool.
absolutely beautiful... I mean, it just changes the whole pace of the film.
Oh, my God. I was watching it, and I was like, I want to do this for, like, a self-tape, but the trouble is it's so iconic now with who delivers it and how they deliver it and where they deliver it. Because, again, I was going to say earlier, I've heard so many times the, like, shark's eyes, it's like a doll's eyes, black, until it bites you and then they turn white. Like, I've heard that so many times, and I'm just like, yeah, Jaws, doll's eyes, blah, blah, shark.
Yeah.
And then you watch the movie, and I'm like, oh my God, these people, like, I had no idea of the context of the monologue. I thought they also made up the Indianapolis.
No.
I was like, that's cute. And then I Googled it, and I was like, that's tragic.
Well, this is it.
God.
Yeah, this is it. And it's a very... Because of that, you know, they'd done the research. They'd put that in, and you don't know why they put it in, and then suddenly when you watch it, I don't know about you, but me as a kid, I completely forgot about the shark. I was listening to this man's story about the war and about sharks, completely forgot that there were 3 of them out there trying to catch this giant shark.
Yeah.
And as you said before about the barrels, when he's finished the story, they start singing "Show Me the Way to Go Home."
Yeah.
And next thing, poof, you just see this barrel come out of the water, and you think, "Oh shit, the shark!
Fuck.
Oh shit!" And it's found them.
Yeah.
Kind of thing. And it takes the film on a whole new gear change. Same as when they're leaving to go and get hunt the shark down, and they go through the big jaws, skeleton jaws.
Yeah.
Out the window, and it's as if that's the first half of the film finished.
Yeah.
It's like a perfect closing, and then you're on to for the rest of the film. It's just the 3 of them.
We're out in the sea, and this thing I didn't realise that, because I knew Jaws was about 3 men on a boat, and so I was like, ugh, 3 men on a boat. That's not going to be fun, is it? White men on a boat. Ugh. And
yeah, precisely.
That's the last, for the 2-hour movie, it's only the last half an hour that's the 3rd act, which is them on the boat hunting the shark, and all the stuff up until that. And I knew that one of the greatest insults in the world is to be compared to the mayor from Jaws. There's a joke about it in the 2016 Ghostbusters, and it's don't be like the mayor from Jaws. And I never really got it. And then I watched Jaws, and I was like, is this man the biggest villain in all of cinema? Yes, I think he is. Why is he not on the top 100 villains list? Maybe he is, but why is he not in the top 10? If the shark from Jaws is one of the best monsters, the mayor from Jaws is one of the best monsters in terms of villainy. My God, did it scream of everything relevant. So I think someone in the room even said, they were like, why, if you knew there was a shark, why would you still go on holiday to the beach? And I was like, well, Mum, if you knew there was a deadly virus, but the government hadn't necessarily made you stop going to the pub, would you still go to the pub? Why, yes, humanity would, it turns out.
Yeah, it will. I mean, I was thinking the same watching it, just the fact that, God, nothing changes. I mean, yes, this is about a shark, and all the saying is, just close the beach for a while.
Just make the hard decisions early.
Yeah.
Go into lockdown before the death toll rises.
Yeah, but instead you got somebody immediately, but we rely on this, and I want my money, and I have to have my money and everything. Yeah. And it's like that all the way until after the boating park incident, where he's at the hospital, and the mayor's saying, my son was there. Oh, so it matters now. Yeah, now that your son nearly got eaten. Now,
how big a dickhead this guy was, I sat there and I was like, was he, or are you just coming up with a line for the headlines to make you look sympathetic? I didn't even believe him. And my sister was like, no, you have to take this movie at face value sometimes. His son was there. Yeah. And I was like, oh, okay, fair.
Yeah,
but
that was the thing.
Of course, it took that before someone was like...
Well, yeah, precisely. But even when he's at the hospital, because it's Murray Hamilton, I believe, that played the mayor, and he's brilliant. Because I always, when you get somebody who is evil, and you really, really hate them,
but
that's the sign of a good actor.
Yeah,
but you just think that's a good performance. Because when he's at the hospital and he's murmuring to himself about
smoking and
and also that's the other thing, people smoking at the hospital. I've forgotten you could do that.
70s.
I know, it was very 70s. Even the nurses are smoking. But it's wonderful. But you've got the mayor trying to think of what to say to the press. And I'll just say this because, they'll understand that, because that's what I was just doing my job by letting people go in the water. And also the thing is, it's when the kid's mother comes over and hits Sheriff Brody in the face.
Yeah.
Why isn't she hitting the mayor in the face?
Yeah.
Why isn't she hitting somebody else in the face? No, because they think, oh, it's Sheriff Brody. And just quickly, going back to that point about the mother, as a kid watching the film, I just thought there was no way in the world that an adult was going to take me to see a film where a child was going to be killed.
So brutally as well.
So brutally. And you just think, as a kid, now, kids don't get it. Kids never get hurt. Oh, God. The next thing, he's just in this big fountain of red.
explosion of
Yeah,
blood.
and screaming his head off and everything. And you just think, God. The next time I saw anything as shocking as that, I would say, is the ice cream van scene in Assault on Precinct 13 by John Carpenter, which if you've never seen, I'm not going to tell you, but you have to watch, because I watched it, and remember, it's in the first 5 minutes of the film, I think, and it's ice cream van, something happens, and I just thought, oh my God, if they're going to do that 5 minutes into the film, what's the rest of the film going to be like? Yeah. So as a kid, that just frightened me more, because I just thought,
you're not safe.
Shit. Yeah,
Usually
you're not.
kids are
Nobody's safe.
safe.
Yeah, normally
This
kids
is
are
the thing.
safe, and they're not.
And they keep doing that. They keep being like, oh look, the promiscuous woman has been punished as film law goes, and you're like, tick. Chrissy was destined to die. Sorry, hon, but you're naked, and it's the 70s, so off to hell you go.
Precisely.
And then it's a dog, because of course it's a horror. You have to kill the dog to indicate that something bad is happening. He's the first sacrifice usually. Boohoo
Pippin
dog.
the dog. Yeah.
And then what's so great is that there's so many children out there at the time, and you know that one of them's on the yellow lilo, and you know that there's an importance there because you've met his mom.
Yeah.
And then the shark comes, and you're like, they're not actually going to kill the kid though, because this is like a
I think he's
PG
going to swim
movie
past
for like kids or whatever. And then, as you say, like explosion of child chunks into the ocean.
Yeah, that's it.
And
the kid being dragged under.
Because it's not really something that's shown either, but it's really scary. Like whenever they do the scary bits from Jaws kind of clips. But then when the mom like comes down to the sea and is like calling for her child, I was like, this is horrible. Like he's dead. Like that's her child, and he has been eaten in front of everyone.
Everybody,
like I almost wanted her to be a bigger. I expected her to make a dramatic entrance in black. I thought it was going to be during the town meeting, but the dramatic entrance went to somebody else instead. But I was like, this is just calling out for a dramatic entrance. Who's it going to be? But it was Quinn, or whatever his name is. But
Quinn with his nails on the blackboard. It's even better.
When he's drawn the picture of the shark, I was
Yeah.
like, oh, did you make yourself?
Yeah.
Well done. He's like spent the whole time doing that, and then when he was ready, he did the nails on the blackboard.
Yeah. Nobody noticed him. So like get in behind them and start
sketching
drawing
away.
Big shark.
So funny.
Little kid in the mouth.
That was something that I was like, dumb.
Yeah.
But I liked it.
Yeah,
It
well,
was
this is
cool.
because I mean you've got to remember as well. It was in the 70s,
Yeah,
so there were certain things that they could get
a
away
little
with.
bit cheesy.
Yeah, that kind of thing. But it was just, I mean, the whole film itself was a complete change. I mean, we were going through, the cinema world was going through some brilliant changes because I mean, you'd had The Exorcist,
It's so
you'd had The
exciting.
Godfather.
I
Yeah.
wish I'd been there. Like,
Well, it was. I must admit, it was. I was only a kid, but you know, it was. The world was getting to be an exciting place again because
I guess because
the
like,
wars
sort of
were finishing.
censorship
You know,
had relaxed, and you were allowed to
censorship.
see it a lot
Yeah.
more. So they were trying out these stories that were a lot more exciting. I guess we are getting that now. We've had a bit of renaissance in my lifetime as well in terms of like everything that they've done with the Marvel Cinematic Universe. But there's something about practical effects that I think are much more impressive and not better. Like that's the wrong word. I don't want to diss on effects teams because they do spectacular jobs.
Oh yeah, they did.
But it's just, I think it's very impressive to watch like a thing happen that someone's like built. Yeah. And Jaws
I
is
agree
all
with
that. And
that is.
they don't have to rely on CGI. If that shark was CGI, they would be like, cool, get as much shark in there as possible and forget the story. But because the story of these three people and their relationship being built, I had no idea who these people were and what their relationship was. It was such a joy to watch it unfold. And like there were some things I was a bit confused about. I was like, oh, is that Brody's kid in the bay? Is that why I'm meant to care? Because like the thing is, it didn't even have to be Brody's kid at that point. The shark was scary enough and a threat enough to everyone that I was like, that could be any child and I'm still frightened for them all. And just to jump in there with Brody's kid, I think it's the fact that you've got the whole setup of the mayor saying to the old man with his kids, nobody's swimming, go in the water, it's safe. So everybody goes in. Then of course you got the mock shark coming through, and of course what happens before the mock shark? You get Brody saying to his kid,
don't go in the sea. Go in the boating pool, thinking that he's going to be safe. Well, if he's just sent him straight towards the shark.
It's so clever. I sat there and I was like, can the shark not get into the boating pool then? And my dad was just literally like, wait and see. And I was like, oh fuck!
Wait and see, yeah. Yeah. This is the thing. Yeah, this is the thing, because you just think, oh, the kid's going to be safe, but no. And I love it.
Scary.
Yeah, I must admit, at the cinema at the time, when the shark came up behind the guy in the boat, people did laugh a bit. And then when the legs started coming down, I thought, and a lot of people thought, oh, well, it's just the body just dropping. But as soon as the leg turned and it's just ripped off, the entire audience just went, whoa! Yeah, I wasn't expecting that. I was expecting a little bit more, of the person. Still him being intact, not just his leg. But it was wonderful. That it was so well made, so well crafted. Yeah. The casting alone. I mean, going back to I've forgotten the lady's name who played the mother of the kid, who turns up in the black. But the casting is so good from the moment that you see her on the beach with the son. You know that she's had that child at an early age, and you get to see the entire person's story immediately. That's her only child. Yeah. She had him at a late age. This is her husband, who's really old as well. And then, out of all the kids on the beach, the one that gets eaten is the one kid who sat with his mother because all the kids are playing together, and he's a bit of a loner. And he goes out on the raft, and he's the one that gets eaten. And it's really sad in a way.
Sad.
But the casting is so brilliantly done. A lot of the people in the film are from Amity. They were the locals. And because of that, you get this weirdness about them, in the fact that they all talk the same, they all behave the same. And it's a bit like a Wicker Man effect, where it's the fact that these are the locals, but instead of people trying to be local, he used the locals, and they're just wonderful because they're so quirky. But the whole piece itself, when you look at other shark films, I mean, at the time it did inspire a lot. Things like Orca the Killer Whale, which is an appalling Richard Harris film, I have to admit. I still went to the cinema to see it. There was a film called Tentacles, which was about a giant octopus, which was dreadful, but I still went to see it. And the good thing about Tentacles was it finished with them sort of like sending big killer sharks out into the ocean to get it. And so it was just a big rubber octopus fighting with sharks, and it was a bit shit. But I still watched it. I have to admit, I still watched it. But there's loads of films. But there's another one that I haven't been able to find. There's one called Mako, The Jaws of Death, and it's about a guy who can. Yeah, it's about a guy who not so much talk to the animals, but he can sort of like work with sharks and communicate with sharks, and they'll protect him. And I thought it sounded like a bit crap, but too crap to watch. But then I read about it, and he's a loner from the Vietnam War who can communicate with sharks, and then an evil scientist and a man who owns a strip club and wants to use the sharks in the strip routine try and steal his sharks.
Take my money right now.
Precisely. I've been hunting through Amazon trying to find it.
And
I will find it. That film will be mine.
That sounds amazing.
I mean, just the fact that, sharks in a strip routine. Yeah. Brilliant. Who cares? I mean, don't even care about the stripper. Yeah. Don't care about this. I mean, I wouldn't just care about the stripper anyway, unless he looked like Bob Hoskins. But, but sharks in that, it just sounds absolutely awful. But truly wonderful at the same time. And you look at the cast list, and it's not like a cheap cast list. It's a proper made movie.
Oh, wow.
So even better. So that's what I'm going to look for. But there were so many. I mean, there's a lot of shark films now I haven't seen. I have to admit, I've only seen bits of Sharknado 1, 2, 3, and God knows how many.
I was surprised at the success of Sharknado. It must have been down to the marketing, because also you look at Sharknado and everyone's like, dumb shark movie, and I'm like, please, this is like low tier dumb shark movie, like sharks in a tornado with actual actors that you've heard of. No. You want to get yourself over to Ghost Shark, who can embody any stretch of water Be that a paddling pool, a water slide, a cup of coffee, Ghost Shark is there because he is a ghost shark. And
I'm writing that one down.
beautiful.
Ghost Shark.
So good.
Oh, I'm looking at that one.
It's
Where can I
brilliant.
find Ghost Shark?
I can't remember where we watched it. I think we might even have it on DVD. Like, that's the kind of people we are. But
I
it
like
was
your
on
style.
those sort of maybe the Sci-Fi Channel or something like that.
Yeah.
But they show them a lot every now and then. There's been, and then you have your odd like good shark movie that comes out. Like people try and make, was it Reef? Is that it?
Oh yeah, yeah.
Was
Yeah,
that a
there's
movie?
there's a one not overboard, but there's one where a couple fall overboard and
Yeah.
gets eaten.
One of them, I can't remember which one, there's a bunch of them that were made. One of them capitalised on the idea, a really scary bit in Jaws, I just made myself bleed, oh well. A really scary
There
bit
you
in
are.
Jaws is when he's in the cage and he's just looking out into the sea.
Yeah.
And then of course the shark comes and then he comes up from behind, blah blah blah. What one of those, I think it might be the Reef. What one of these, or it might be Blackwater. No, it's not Blackwater. What one of these movies does is basically that. So there's 4 people that are just stuck in the ocean and there's a shark, and just a lot of the movie is there's only one pair of goggles and they take it in turns to put the goggles on and they'll just go under the water and just look out.
Right.
So it's just really long takes of just looking out into the ocean. That's really scary because you're sat there like anything that moves, you're like, oh God, is it a shark? Very, very clever. Because then, of course, you have the thing where it starts coming towards you and it's not just pops up and it's not a jump scare.
Yeah.
It's like, there's a shark coming! Oh God, where am I going? Which is much scarier.
Well, this
So,
is true.
I like that the sort of obsession of the shark movie hasn't died down yet.
Yeah.
I don't think in terms of story they've managed to trump Jaws yet. I've not really seen Deep Blue Sea. I watched The Meg. I thought it did a really good job at what it was trying to do. Like, I
went to
really
the pictures,
enjoyed it. But it was a perfect example of if you have a CGI shark, all of a sudden it doesn't work.
Yeah.
And I liked how like diverse the cast was.
I agree. I mean, I have to admit. I mean, I think that was primarily down to the money that was in the film, but it was nice to see that it wasn't just all on a beach in Florida or anything like that. Yeah, it was sort of like.
And it was massive homages to Jaws as well. Like,
Oh yeah, yeah. I went to the cinema to see it, and I hated every minute of it.
Oh no!
But my friend Gerard, who went with me, he loved it because he loves that kind of stuff. He knows that it's crap and everything, but he had a good laugh. So he keeps watching it on Sky.
Yeah,
it's
it is that. This is the thing. Jaws, you have to sit down and give it the attention that it deserves because it's an excellent piece of filmmaking and storytelling. The Meg is like a good shark movie.
Yeah, yeah, it is. It's just
I
a fun
really liked it.
film. That was it. It was just a fun film. There will be a part 2. There's bound to be a part 5.
Yeah.
I would say. I wouldn't be surprised.
And
But,
I will watch it.
Well, yeah. This is it.
But
I mean,
then The Shallows with I think Blake Lively was shit. It was so shit.
don't
That's
think I've
just
seen
Blake
The
Lively versus a shark. But like,
But I mean, if you want really, really bad shark movie, Jaws: The Revenge. Jaws 4 is appalling.
is that the one with Michael Caine?
Yeah, it's the
Michael
one
Caine.
where the I think it's the nephew of the shark that was blown up in Jaws turns up to travels the whole length of America to find Sheriff Brody's wife because Sheriff Brody is dead, and Sheriff Brody's wife, who had nothing to do with the killing of the shark. Sharks they really hold a grudge. So
Oh my God, that's
he travels all the way
hilarious.
down to the Bahamas and finds her. And I think he actually jumps out of the water and attacks a helicopter. I can't remember that one, but it was rubbish. It was rubbish. It's one of the longest films I've ever seen because it's just rubbish. Part 3 I saw in 3D with the glasses,
Nice.
and it's not a bad. No, it's a bad film, but it's watchable.
It's enjoyable.
It's better than part 2. I always look at sequels. I compare my sequels everybody does, like in Scream, where they talk about the sequels. Godfather 2 is possibly better than Godfather 1. I will
Don't
agree.
like it. I couldn't get to Godfather 1, so I never made it to 2.
Oi.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Well,
I know it's so controversial, but I was watching The Godfather and I was just like, eh. But, like, I don't like gangster movies, so...
Fair enough. Fair
it's
enough.
like, this isn't for me.
Fair enough. Well, part 2 is even longer. You probably wouldn't have liked, but I loved it. But having said that, as I say, Exorcist is possibly my favourite horror film.
It's yeeted itself to my top 5 out of nowhere after years of not watching it.
It's a beautiful, and it's again like Jaws, as you say. It's a well-made film. The acting is bob on, because it's not so like, oh, we're making a schlocky horror film. No, they were making a film.
Yeah.
And they've got it right. And as an adaptation of the book, it's very close to the book as well.
That's cool.
It's wonderful, and the books. I advise. Well, yeah, I can recommend you to read the book.
I do really want to read it.
Part
it's
2.
Oh yeah, no, sorry.
Go on. You carry on.
No, I was just going to say that, like, as I said, I'd never really seen Jaws as a horror film. But then yesterday I did. I realised why it's a horror film.
Yeah. Because it horrifies you, and it's very
it's
tense.
Really scary.
Yeah, it is
it's
pretty tense.
Really scary.
Yeah, not just the gore, but it is like with Exorcist, which, as I say, what is possibly my favourite horror film. Part 2. Have you seen Part 2 of The Exorcist?
No.
Don't.
No.
It's absolutely appalling. It's one of the wasted time. Part 3 of The Exorcist is one of my favourite horror films. It is absolutely.
Really?
If you love horror, yeah,
Is that the
sit
one
and
with
watch
Gina
The
Davis?
Exorcist Part 3. No, that's the
Nice.
TV series. No,
Ah,
the film is George C. Scott, and it's actually the based on the book Legacy, which was the book that came out after Exorcist.
oh, cool.
It's the same. It's Pazuzu again, but it's a
Nice.
bit tacky. But
Love it.
and there's a couple of special effects where you go, oh, really? But the film itself, not only does it have possibly the most frightening scene I've ever seen on film that made me
wow.
jump out of my seat again and again every time I watch it. It just terrifies me. But it's also, there's the actor Brad Dourif is in it. And
I love him.
He gives a monologue to camera. He's one of the possessions, basically. And he gives a monologue to camera. And it is one of the most well-written, beautiful monologues. And the acting is superb. Why on earth he didn't get an Oscar, I'll never know. I'm sat here twiddling my pen because I'm so excited. But it is absolutely, it's well worth it. Exorcist 3 is well worth it. And if you do watch it, watch out for the bit in the corridor with the nurse in the hospital late at night.
I think that I thought that was Gina Davis as the nurse, because I've briefly seen that bit where she goes into a room and then she comes out of the room followed by someone.
Yeah. When
Oh.
you watch the whole scene, and it goes on for about 10 minutes, the whole scene, until that bit, boy, I leapt off my chair. It was brilliant.
Yeah.
So so some sequels are good, as I would say, but the Jaws sequels weren't. The Jaws sequels just weren't. And also, going back to Jaws, because it was so good, kind of tainted everything I watched after that.
Oh, really?
It had to be as good as that.
That's
And
fair. I think we should hold movies up to a standard. Like, they take so much time and money. Have the decency to make them good. Like,
Well, yeah, precisely. Don't rush them out. You know, take time with them. You know, audiences aren't as stupid as I think people think.
Yeah.
And when you look at the films that have been very successful over the years, I mean, not just the sci-fi films. I mean, the Avenger movies have been huge. But the running time of the last Avengers movie was 3 hours.
Yeah.
3.5 hours. It's roughly the same as Lawrence of Arabia.
Yeah.
I nearly said the wrong word there. Lawrence of Arabia, thinking of the wrong film. So an audience will sit for that length of time. And also the other thing is, in the olden days, they used to have an intermission. So an hour and a half into a film, you could get up and get an ice cream.
Literally, we
They
were
don't
talking
do that
about
now.
the other day, and I don't understand why they don't do it, because I grew up watching all the old movies, and I rewatched Gone with the Wind when it came back into cinemas for the anniversary,
That must have been
and
lovely.
it was a joy to watch. And I understand that it's problematic today, but it had an interval, and that was great, because I could get off and stretch my legs and get another drink, and it was fine. So when the Avengers came out, there were all these jokes online about people being like, "Oh God, how are we gonna like watch this movie that's 3 hours long?" And obviously, me and my friend literally talked about it, where we were like, they clearly, if they thought about it, they could have structured it so they could have an interval, because it's not like they just cut Gone with the Wind in half. They lead up to something that has a definite ending, and then they reopen with like a new chapter, and they could have done that with the Avengers quite easily if they wanted to, but they didn't. They just went ahead with it, and then they were like, "Oh, turns out it's like 3.5 hours long. Enjoy." And everyone was like, "What?" So yeah,
That's the thing. Yeah, I didn't see the last one at the cinema. I must admit, not that I've gone off watching films at the cinema. I like going when it's quiet and there's just me.
yes,
We went to, the three of us here went to see A Quiet Place at up the road at South Rislip, and it was anything but a quiet place.
Yeah,
5
that's
minutes
the
into the
trouble.
film, 12 people arrive with nachos and popcorn and mobile phones and start talking. I just got up and left. Well, we all just
it's
got
so
up and left.
frustrating. Like, we went to see Hereditary, and
Yeah.
clearly someone
Awful
had,
film.
like,
Sorry, carry on.
controversial. I liked it. But
Yeah.
someone had clearly read something about the movie, and it was that classic teenage boy that sat there on his phone as if to be like, "I'm not scared." And as someone that worked in the London Dungeon, I'm like, that is the most obvious way of showing us that you are scared, because you're not even watching the movie, and it's not because you're too cool, it's because you're frightened. But he'd clearly heard something about the movie, so like very early on he started going,
Oh no.
it hadn't been established in the movie as a thing yet, so we were like, is he okay?
Yeah.
And then it got established as a thing, and we were like, oh, he's trying to scare us. Dude, timing is a whole thing in horror. If you wanted that to work, you needed to wait for it to be established in the world of the movie first, and then do it in my ear. Otherwise, you just look really dumb.
Yeah.
So
Oh,
yeah, it's
bless
annoying.
him. Bless him.
Literally, I was just like, get out.
Yeah. Was he on his own as well?
Oh no, he had like an entourage of teenage girls that he could like throw his arm over them as they leave, kind of thing. You know the one.
Yeah. Thankfully, I was never that one. I was never that one at all. I didn't have an entourage of teenage boys either or anything. It was just me and my copy of 2000 AD, and that was it. Yeah. But I'm just quickly going through Hereditary. I really tried to like it. I thought the performances were good. I liked the way it was filmed, but I just didn't. It just didn't. I think I was expecting a lot more. I think because somebody had said it's the sort of like the this generation's Exorcist.
They really.
And I didn't think it was.
Yeah, they really pushed it as a horror, and like we handed our tickets in at the front, and the woman went, "Oh, good luck," and we were like, "Oh." We spent more of that movie crying than we did screaming, because we were like, "This is heartbreaking. This is so upsetting," and both of us had recently lost someone, and we were just like, "This is sad. This is a sad movie." Oh God, that's horrific.
Oh, it is,
but mainly it's sad.
Yeah.
So like, it's scary in that it's like, I really hope that never happens to me. But it wasn't scary, like, I'm going to go and have nightmares. Like, my friend always has nightmares after watching horror movies, and she was like, I didn't have nightmares. Instead, I just lay there thinking, what would that be like if that happened to me? Oh, now I'm really, really upset, and I can't sleep because I'm so upset, rather than I'm frightened that Tony Collette's going to be on my ceiling.
That was the thing, because I was enjoying it, really enjoying it, and then suddenly it just started getting a bit too, it's going a bit weird now.
Yeah.
Oh, it's going down that route. Oh, right. Yeah.
Also, in my head, I've edited it so the last 10 minutes of the movie no longer exists. So they go up into the tree house, and we see this like scarecrow, and then the movie ends. Because
I prefer
by
that.
that point I was like, cool, I get it, I know what's going on. And then like the woman from Handmaid's Tale stepped forward and is like, So basically, we're these people. We've been doing this. He's involved this way. This is what's... And I was like, no, I get it.
I get it.
It's fine. And she just kept talking.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay.
That was the
great.
thing. Yeah. I agree with you. If it had finished there, I probably would have enjoyed it a bit more. But no,
a little bit.
It
just got a bit weird at the end. One thing we haven't mentioned about Jaws that I really want to just quickly get into is that shot. And it's very famous and I've seen it 100 times. But this time round, in the context of the movie, I was like, A, how do they even do that? And B, what an excellent piece of filmmaking. It is the bit that is literally a visualization of your stomach dropping. Like
Sheriff Brody being watching the shark and the dolly truck and pulling the focus at the same time. Yeah.
So clever.
Yeah.
And I've seen it 1,000 times, but seeing it this time, I was like, oh, this should be like number one on like cool shit they did in movies to like visualize shit. Top 20. And
that's a great title, by the way. I think you should use that title. Yeah, but it's a good one. You should keep it. I like it.
I'm gonna go write a blog post with that.
Yeah, should do.
It's amazing. It literally is like his heart's in his mouth, and that's what the camera does. Not even the acting. You could have a mannequin there, and just the use of camera visualizes how a person feels, and that is so cool.
Yeah, this was the thing, because that shot, it's iconic now. I mean, it was the first time it had been used, I believe. It was invented for the film, a bit like with the Steadicam for The Shining with Kubrick. A lot of the Steadicams were invented for the film. That's why you get all the lovely shots. I also think I could talk about The Shining for hours. It's one of my favourites.
It's another one I need to rewatch. I watched it years ago, and I was like, I don't see the fuss.
Yeah, young people don't like it. As you get older, you appreciate it.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's still a wonderful film. Again, I saw it when I was too young to see it, but I loved it. But going back to that tracking shot, I do believe it was used by having the camera on a dolly truck. So it's going towards him, but at the same time, they were either pulling in focus or letting out focus of the lens. One of the two, zooming in or zooming out. So you get the...
So clever.
I don't know why I'm doing this with my hands, because I can see you on the screen. I'm doing that with my hands, but when you're listening to this, dear listener, imagine me doing this with my hands. You can't tell what I'm doing. Yes, lots of frantic hand movements, like I'm waving, like I'm drowning from a shark attack, kind of thing. But that effect was just absolutely incredible. I mean, yes, now they use it on adverts and all kind of things, but at the time, and that's what I agree with you totally, especially with horror, is using practical effects. I don't know if you've seen, I said I was going to talk about him, and I will do, Andy Nyman and Jeremy Dyson's Ghost Stories. I don't know if you've seen that.
I saw it on stage, and I saw the movie, and I'm not gonna. I couldn't watch it properly because I was alone and I was really scared. So I was
that's a good sign. I'd rather you say that than say I didn't like it, kind of thing. Cause I mean, if people don't like it, they don't like it. And it's good to discuss it. But I loved it.
Scary.
I absolutely loved it.
Because I remembered watching it on stage as well, and I mainly watched the carpet below me than the stage, because I was just like, this is so stressful, I can't. Yeah,
well, this is it. Well, apart from, I think it's one or two little pieces, which was just to clean up frames, all the special effects are practical.
Oh my god.
There's very little CGI, and that's what I love about it, because whatever they can do on stage, they can do on film, and they can do here, there, and it's so effective. The bit with the toys in the cot falling apart and reassembling and this, that, and I have to admit, it did scare the bejesus out of me. I watched half of it behind my hand,
and
I
had to do.
Yeah, I only saw it last year. Well, it only came out 2 years ago, so I mean, it was 53, 54 years old, and I thought, I'm past this sitting down to watch films through my fingers. I'm big enough now, but no. Ghost Stories, moment it started, it just petrified. You should watch it again.
I think I will. It's funny because Ghost Stories is one of those movies, but in the best way possible, where it's like something's gonna happen. So it gives you time to cover your eyes. I didn't find I was covering my eyes watching Jaws because I was just you're not expecting any of the jump scares, and I was genuinely interested in what was happening, and I couldn't look away. So that's why I was screaming instead, because I still had to release, but I couldn't look away. So I was just like, instead.
Well, yeah, this is it. This is the beauty of it, because, I mean, it's like, again, going back to the boat where Richard Dreyfuss is in the water, and, he finds the tooth and pulls that, and just before the head comes out. Yeah, and it's the fact that when I remember as a kid thinking, the shark's going to come out. The shark's going to come out of that hole. That's what it's going to be. Nothing more. Or he's going to swim off with the tooth. Blah, de blah. No. Man's head with eye falling out. And I wasn't expecting it. And absolutely petrified. And that's the beauty of it. It gives you scares that you don't expect.
Yeah.
That you're building up for something, but you don't know what. And also, because it did influence in some ways Alien as well. Apparently the original pitch for Alien was Jaws in space. But if you watch Alien, which is every time you see the alien, it's changed. So you when you first see it, your imagination's working on what it's going to look like the next time. Well, of course it doesn't look anything like that. And the next time, and the next time. Every time you see it, it's changed. So you're not expecting what you see, which is a brilliant effect that Ridley Scott had come up with, a brilliant idea. But of course, that had come from Jaws, from the fact that our big rugby shark's so shite, let's not see much of it. So they kept it to a minimum, so they had to use other effects to imply the fear from that. And that in turn comes from Hitchcock, from his use of just music and tempo and atmosphere and everything. Because I could sit here and talk about Hitchcock all day long as well. Another one that I absolutely love. But yeah, and anything. I mean, as again going back to Psycho still frightens me. It's just the tension. And I don't know when the last time was that you saw Psycho, but it still works. It's still a great film. Psycho 2, no, apart from the ending. The ending is fantastic of Psycho 2, if you remember that.
Oh, no, I haven't seen Psycho 2.
Oh, I won't tell you the ending then. Because the film's a bit pants. But the ending's one of those, whoa, I didn't expect that kind of thing.
That's cool.
So that's all, yeah. But it's not worth sitting 2 hours through, to admit. I have to admit. But yeah. But yeah, that was the beauty of Jaws. I mean, it must have cost them. Well, it did cost them a fortune, and they went over production times because of the shark, and which I believe was called Bruce. I think they nicknamed it Bruce. Yeah, they named him that. But it was just a wonderful film that changed everything. I mean, it was the first summer blockbuster. Mm-hmm. So after that, they started releasing films, but. Though I do feel that blockbusters now are just popcorn movies. They're not. Not anything else.
It's funny how it's changed again, and this is the thing. Like Jaws is one of those movies that like they were trying new things and they were being progressive and they were introducing actors that went on to be huge stars, and it's the kind of movie that you can't help. Like Psycho, like Singing in the Rain, like The Exorcist, you can't help but be like, oh, and did you know this about it? Like, it comes with a bunch of stories from the set, and because it was a real journey to make it. I'm sure you could talk about Ant-Man and the Wasp and be like, oh yeah, this was fun about it. But in my head, it's almost more like a video game than it is a movie, because it just got made to be slot in with all of these other movies.
It's funny that you should say Ant-Man and the Wasp. It is a particular favourite of mine, purely to say there's no need for Ant-Man and the Wasp, apart from the end credits, where they do the little bit to tie in with Infinity.
The main Avengers.
And that's it. I hated Ant-Man and the Wasp.
I've not seen Ant-Man and the Wasp, because a lot of MCU movies I didn't see. I Googled what I need to watch before Infinity War. Right. And I just did that.
But you don't need Ant-Man and the Wasp. I'm a huge, as you may be able to tell, the listeners can't see shit, but behind me on my wall, I've got a couple of DC and Marvel over that side, and big DC there. And There's a Queensryche album just behind me as well that I've been listening to. So I'm huge on that kind of thing. So I did watch all the Marvel Universe stuff, but some was better than others. But the Ant-Man and the Wasp wasn't needed, apart from the last bits. But you were right with it. I mean, with the actors and the names that they were using, because first of all they were planning on using Charlton Heston as Sheriff Brody.
Yeah, I read that, and Spielberg didn't want it because he was like, if you walk in and see Charlton Heston versus the shark, you know that he'll win and the shark will lose. And it's so true. I remembered that fact when I was watching it, when like Brody shoots at the shark or something, and I was like, you're right, there's something about this actor that I'm like, he could lose. They could all die right now. And I wouldn't know. But if it was like the modern equivalent of Chris Pratt or Jason Statham, you knew that Jason Statham was going to win against the Meg. Whereas whoever even... I had no idea who Richard Dreyfuss was. He was the only person I was like, I think that's a name that's like I should know, because I think he's like a person. I assumed that he played Brody because I knew that Brody was the main character.
Yeah, Roy Schneider.
And it was still only when I looked at the cast list afterwards that I was like, oh, still don't really know who any of these people are. And maybe that's me being ignorant, or the fact that it was 75. But I think that's quite nice. I like it when not to go so far as Disney, where he's like, hey, Andrea Carlotta or whatever her name was, who played Snow White, and he was like, you're not allowed to be in anything else ever again because Snow White needs to be an iconic voice that's not heard anywhere. Fuck that. That's monstrous. But it's nice, like the Blair Witch. They were like, we want absolute unknowns, so you could believe that these people have genuinely gone missing. That kind of vibe.
Well, this is it, because he didn't want names that were going to detract too big, but at the same time they did want names so that people would go, oh, I've seen that in a film. So of course you got Roy Schneider, who was in French Connection, who was Popeye Doyle's, Gene Hackman's partner in French Connection. He'd also, I don't know if he'd done Marathon Man by then. I don't think he had. I think Marathon Man was afterwards. But, so he wasn't hugely known, but he was known. And also he brought this great just normality to him. I mean, when they're comparing scars on the ship, when Dreyfuss and Robert Shaw are comparing scars, and then of course Brody lifts up his shirt to look at his appendix scar kind of thing, and that's like sums up the kind of character of Brody, the fact that he's just an everyday person. He's got no tails, he's got nothing to talk about, but he's a sheriff, and he's probably had a great time in New York, and was probably a brilliant police officer. And then of course you got Richard Dreyfuss, who again had been offered the role but wasn't going to take it because he wanted something different, and he just done The Apprenticeship of Dudi Kravitz, which is a great film but not a popular film. It's more of an not an art film, but it's more of an adult film, so to speak. And he'd seen a preview of it after filming it, and he thought his performance was so bad he'd never work again. So because of that, he rang up Spielberg and said, if that job's still going, I'll take it. And that's the only reason he took Jaws, because he thought Dudi Kravitz was going to be awful. As it was when they started filming, Dudi Kravitz, the reviews went off the hook, as the kids say today. Wow. And there were glowing reports for Dreyfuss about how brilliant he was, which of course really pissed off Robert Shaw. So him being Quinn and him being Hopper, it does help with this, sort of like the fact that they don't get on too well together. But Robert Shaw was really pissed off with that. But it's just amazing how they got the cast together. Lorraine Gray, who plays Mrs. Brody, her husband was the president of Universal Studios, and she was the first one that was approached because they were the first people that were involved. So she was the first bit of casting, basically. And it wasn't a nepotistic thing. My wife wants to be in a movie kind of thing. It was a case of she was the ideal choice. So she was on board first, and then it was trying to fit everybody else
around
in.
her.
Yeah, and I do think the casting, there isn't a weak bit of casting. Even the guy that walks out of the shop with a pipe and some groceries and a sailor's hat, and he stands there and does nothing, and then walks around and off, and you just think, who the fuck is that, and what is he doing? But he still fits in well with it. He fits perfectly, because you just think, oh, he's one of the locals. kind of thing. But it's just, it is for that. It is, it is a perfect movie. I've had more time to sit. I really love this because you've given me the chance to sit down. I've watched Jaws 3 times since the weekend because it was actually on Sky Movies the other night, and just walked into the living room and my mate Jared was watching it. So I thought, oh, perfect timing. I'll just sit down and watch it again. Yeah. So I've watched it 3 times. So I've been able to look at the scenery and look at the detail of everything that was in. The set dressing is phenomenal. The costumes are phenomenal.
You really get the sense that it's set on this island, that it's in this, as you said, like Wicker Man, and I love that when something's just set in one place.
Yeah. That's all that you see is that island, which is Martha's Harbour, apparently.
Oh, cool.
In Massachusetts. I often wondered what Martha's Harbour looked like. It was on an episode of Family Guy. And I always thought, I wonder what it looks like. Not knowing, of course, it was Amity. But,
nice.
But yeah, but everything about it and the music, John Williams' music. I mean, that I think again changed film music. As with I forgot, Elmer. Was it Elmer Bernstein who did Psycho? I've forgotten.
Oh no, I can't remember.
But the Psycho. As soon as you hear Psycho, you know
exactly.
You know exactly what film it is.
I would argue, this is up there. This is one of the most famous film scores, and famously Spielberg was like, "What have you got for me for my shark, John?" And he played it to him, and Spielberg was like, "Haha, very funny," but like genuinely, "What have you got for my shark?" And he was like, "Oh, this, like, sorry, I thought it was good." I found it really interesting that, of course, every time the shark's there, it is like bum 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 bum, kind of thing. But then every time it cuts back to the 3 men like doing something, it's quite jovial. It's quite like
it's like the old British nautical films, and everything. It's all like the big galleon ships, and it does. You're quite right.
This music out of context, I would not have a clue that it was from Jaws.
Yeah. This is it, because it's quite jolly light music. It's like British classical music from the 1920s and 30s. It's just that nice lifting music. You know, you're quite
and
right.
Then the shark comes back and it's like, oh god.
Yeah. But it's just that. But it is. You're quite right. Those simple notes that just imagine being John Williams saying, "This is what I've got for you." So, I don't really like it.
Don't like it.
All right, I'll go back and put a violin in it then. Or something. But yeah, just little things like that.
Yeah.
It was wonderful. As I say, I could talk for hours about Jaws because
literally though. Thank you so much for choosing it. Like,
it's all right.
It was. I mean, look at most of my notes are just all the time.
I like them.
Yeah.
But I've thoroughly enjoyed it, and thank you so much because I had a blog that I started ages ago, and I haven't written for it for 7 years. Things happened.
Yeah.
And, John being ill being one of them, so I stopped writing for that. But this has inspired me to start writing again. So I hope you don't mind, but I'd like to write about this that we've discussed 100%. Today. And it's just reignited my love of films, because for years I started playing around about 1990. I got my first Nintendo. I was 25 years old and I got a Nintendo. And I'd much rather sit playing Nintendo or PS4 than watch a lot of television these days. And I have done for many years. So I've missed out on a lot of films. But it's rekindled my love of the old films. So I'm going to go back and watch some more of them. Just write about my passion in films. Because I was going to lead on from... It was either going to be Jaws, as you know, the list that I sent you. Earth Dies Screaming, or Brides of Dracula, but also Close Encounters, another one which I just loved so much, and just a film that I absolutely love.
That's another one that I've done a lot of film watching, quite horribly really, to just tick things off lists. So Close Encounters was one I was like, oh, I know I need to see this, because it's one or the other with me. Like, I need to spontaneously come to a movie and then I'll fall in love with it and become obsessed with it. Whereas because I had to sit down and watch Close Encounters, I was like, yeah, it was great. Now I get all the references, done. Yeah. Whereas I don't think back on it like, oh my god, it moved me or anything. I'm just like, yeah, it was good. Yeah, it was really good. It was great. It was great. So I need to go back again and watch it like properly. Like I watched Jaws, where I was like, what? How is Jaws a horror? Why is Jaws so good? I don't understand. Yeah. Then I watched it and I was like, aha.
Yeah, you understand that. And Exorcist 3, you'll have to watch that as well.
Yeah. Thank you so for
Thank you.
coming. This has been an absolute joy to finally watch Jaws properly. Do you have anything to plug? And where can we find you on social media?
On social media, I'm on Twitter as Derry Burr. I've also got a blog called The Bear and the Woods, but which I haven't written anything for 7 years, but I'm going to start writing again. So yeah, I was about to start in Hairspray tonight. Might be a little while before we do that again. So the best thing is, yeah, if you like me, if you want to follow me, then Twitter, Derry Burr, at Derry Burr, Dermot Canavan, and all my details are on there about my blog, what I'm doing. I have an Instagram page as well, Derry Burr. I have a play which was on in Prague, but because of the global lockdown, isn't on in Prague at the moment, but hopefully we'll be getting back up, and that's called Third Finger Left Hand, which is my pride and joy. It's about my sisters.
That's really
I'm
cool.
very proud of that. Really, really proud of that play. So yeah, that's me. There's not. For somebody that never stops talking, I'm very shy when it comes to self-promotion.
Yeah.
Honestly,
No, it's the worst bit. But yeah, I will link everyone to your pages and to your blog as well. Thank you so much for coming on, and we'll see you next time on Why This Film. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you so much for listening. If you enjoy Why This Film, why not head to iTunes and leave us a review? And you can now support Why This Film on Patreon from as little as £1 a month. Just head to patreon.com/Why This Film Podcast. You can find us on Facebook at Why This Film Podcast, on Instagram at Why This Film Podcast, and on Twitter at Why This Film Pod. If you'd like to come on the show and talk about your favourite childhood movie, email into us at whythisfilmpodcast@gmail.com.
Hey everybody, I'm Corey.
And I'm Zach, and we're the hosts of Podcasting After Dark, a cast dedicated to late-night horror and sci-fi of the 80s and 90s, often found on HBO and Cinemax.
You know, the movies your parents didn't want you watching as a kid. You can find us every other week on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Podbean, and Stitcher.
This is what you want.
This is what you get.
What's up, guys and gals, and everyone in between? This is Tess from Ongoing Comic Book Discussion Podcast, the place where a fun gal like me dives into the world of comic books one adventure at a time. Join me every Wednesday as I review a new comic book topic with a fun guest. I don't know if you know this, but comic books rule, dude.
Have you been wondering where's the beef? Well, on our podcast, Throwback Trivia Takedown, you might just find that out, as well as some other things about the 70s, 80s, and 90s.
We're a nostalgic-based trivia show that pits two challengers head-to-head in a duel of the decades, with categories ranging from movies, TV and music, to slang, food, and fashion. You're sure to get the best in retro-themed trivia.
So strap on your jelly shoes, grab a Surge, and walk like an Egyptian to your favorite podcast app and check out Throwback Trivia Takedown.
I heard even Mikey likes it.